got no women coming in my chat, in my comment section, hating on me, hating on the content of my videos. Why? How come? Don't you find that strange? That I have more men trying to make the argument that women are naturally and biologically monogamy-oriented than the women themselves? Don't you find that strange? I do. I find that incredible. And again, it just confirms what Daniel Bergner said in his book, man. Again, Daniel Bergner said, man, men want to believe that women are naturally and biologically monogamy-oriented because it makes them sleep better at night. And again, the powers that be in society, they know that. Men want to believe that women are naturally and biologically monogamy-oriented because it makes them sleep better at night. And again, the powers that be in society, they know that. The powers that be in society, they know that. Yeah, that video excerpt you just saw was from a video I did on March 2nd of this year. It was called Why Most Men Cannot Handle Women's True Sexual Nature. The claim to fame of that video is that's actually my most watched video since I've been on YouTube. I came on YouTube in early April of 2017, and that's my most watched video today. It's no longer a free video. Like, there's a lot of videos that used to be free to the general public that are now Patreon exclusive videos. Matter of fact, somebody on Twitter just said to me this morning, they think the video I did on Monday, the one where I talked about Rollo Tomasi co-signing with my assertion that Mo 1 is going to be the wave of the future. I had a guy on Twitter, he said he thinks I should change that to a Patreon exclusive video. Yeah, he basically was like, man, that shouldn't even be a free video, man. That should be a Patreon exclusive video. Did I mention that video combined with Rollo's fan base helped my 2017 ebook version of Mo 1 go up in the rankings on Amazon in the category of communication skills? Yeah, it went up to as high as number 5. Number 5. Yeah, it went up to as high as number 5. On Tuesday, it was up to as high as number 5. And I want to say just last night, it was up to as high as number 6. That's the highest ranking I've had for that book in that category in over 2 years. Yep, that's the highest ranking I've had for my 2017 ebook version of Mo 1 in over 2 years. Actually, that particular ebook, as I mentioned, I think on a recent video, was actually at one point ranked number 1 in the category of communication skills on Amazon. Yeah, in late April, the last 2 days of April and the first 2 to 3 days of May of 2017, my 2017 ebook version Mo 1 was actually ranked number 1 in the category of communication skills. This morning I had 3 of my ebooks in the top 100 in the category of communication skills. But anyway, going back to that video excerpt, yeah, that video excerpt was my most watched video to date. As of right now, last time I checked the stats, I had over 72,000 views, which is the most views I've had for any video I've done, even though the last, 5-6 months, that video hasn't even been available to the general public. So most of those views were accumulated within the first month or two after I posted the video. Because about 2 to 3 months after I recorded the video, I made it a Patreon exclusive video. But yeah, that video had over 72,000 views, and it had almost 1,000 comments and reply comments in the comment section. Yeah, I had a lot of feedback on that video. Yeah, I was just talking about the fact, I've done a couple similar videos since then, but yeah, I was just talking about the general fact that most men, in my opinion, either one or two things. They either are just totally naive and or delusional in respect to women's true sexual nature, or they're aware of women's true sexual nature and it's caused them a high degree of anger, frustration, bitterness, resentment, and even flat out misogyny. Most men are in one of the two categories when it comes to, yeah. There's men, well, I'll say three categories actually. There's some men who are very naive to women's true sexual nature. Of course, we call those guys blue pill. Blue pill. That's what a blue pill guy is. It's a guy who's just totally naive and or delusional in regards to women's true sexual nature. There's some guys that they're aware of it and they're accepting of it. They're aware of it and they accept it. In other words, they don't have any type of ill feelings about it. They just have an attitude like, okay, that's how women are, so be it. That's what you call red pill. Guys in that category would be called red pill. And the guys who have anger, bitterness, resentment, and misogyny in response to finding out about women's true sexual nature, those are what I refer to as black pill. Now, of course, there's debates about what's black pill, what's not. Alan Roger Currie, I call those black pill guys. That's what I call black pill. Some people call it simply red pill rage. I've even heard some people call that blue pill rage. I never heard of blue pill rage. Some people call that blue pill rage. But yeah, I call it black pill. That's black pill guys who have a lot of anger and bitterness towards women because of their nature. Yeah, but that video, the specific clip, why I played that specific clip, is to highlight the fact that, yeah, man, there's a lot of guys, and I got some feedback from just yesterday's video. From at least a couple guys trying to suggest that, I don't know the exact words, but some guys, actually at least two guys wrote me comments saying, Alan, feminism has distorted women's sexuality. It has distorted and corrupted women's sexuality. Before the days of feminism, women weren't like this. In so many words, these two guys were saying that they believed that all women were good girls, and they even tried to suggest that women are going against their true nature by being promiscuous and or polyamorous. If you remember the video I did just a few months ago with that singer, Akon, I did a video where I had a philosophical dispute with this singer, Akon, because Akon, he said that when he was being interviewed. He basically said that he felt like women who are promiscuous and or polyamorous are actually going against their true biological nature. When I argue, it's just the opposite. Women who are strictly monogamous are the ones who are deviating from their nature. And that's due to their social, what I refer to as their social programming. What I refer to as their social programming. Social programming is the one thing that will make a woman deviate from her nature and become engaged in strictly monogamous behavior over a long period of time, years, decades, whatever. But in other words, if a woman didn't have any social influence, social programming, particularly any organized religion-based influences in their life, I would argue that just about all women would engage in some degree of promiscuous behavior and or polyamorous behavior. I would argue that just about all women would engage in some degree of promiscuous behavior and or polyamorous behavior. If they didn't have any influences from society as a whole, more specifically from organized religion, their mother, their father, T.I. anyone. It is not, again, I ain't the only one who believes this. Daniel Bergner, who I mentioned in that clip, he says that in his book, man. He says there's never been any scientific or biological evidence suggesting that women are born with a natural or biological desire to engage in strictly monogamous behavior. That's a man-made thing, man. Strict monogamy is a man-made thing. Ain't no man or woman born with a proclivities to be strictly monogamous. That's bullshit. And I had at least 2 guys in the last 24 hours wrote me saying that they were blaming women's promiscuous and or polyamorous behavior on the second wave of feminism. Man, get the fuck out of here. Straight up. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. You're stupid. You're naive. You're living in a delusional fantasy world. That shit ain't real life. And there's so much evidence on this earth, it ain't even funny. If I had limitless time, I would point out all the evidence that backs me up on what I'm saying. It ain't no evidence that back y'all up on what y'all saying. It ain't no evidence of that shit. Riddle me this, Batman. If women were so happy and satisfied with strictly monogamous behavior, then why did they fight for a second wave of feminism in the first place? I already covered that on a video earlier this year. Why? Why did they fight for the second wave of feminism in the first place? You know, again, this goes back to that video I did, I want to say, I don't know, about 2 months ago. When I talked about criticize people who keep making comments like, I wish we were back in the early part of the 20th century. Things would be better. Things would be better. That's bullshit. Better for who? Better for who? Better for who? Again, if the vast majority of women were happy with how things were in the first half of the 20th century, why would they fight for the second wave of feminism in the first place? Why would they fight for the second wave of feminism in the first place? Why? What would be their motivation if like 80, 90, 95% of heterosexual women in society were totally happy and satisfied with how things were? Why would they fight for the second wave of feminism? There's a woman who posts in my comment section quite a bit. I might mess up her username. Her username is something like Sweet Lady in Chicago. Something close to that. Sweet Lady in Chicago. I don't agree with 100% of the stuff she says in my comment section. But I agree with no less than half of the shit she says. And one thing she said a couple times in my comment section, which I've said before, I want to even say Ron Wills has said this at least once. She made the point that back in the day, man, before the days of second wave of feminism, a lot of women were in unhappy marriages because they were not married to the man who they really wanted to be married to. They were married to men that their mothers and fathers had essentially picked out for them. They weren't really physically or sexually attracted to their husbands. They hooked up with those guys mainly because their mother and or father influenced them to. That's what was done. I mean, in the 19th century and first half of the 20th century, there was a lot of marriages that came very close to being essentially like a prearranged marriage. Like you have in like India and places like that. It came very close to being like that. A lot of mothers and fathers would hand-pick their son-in-laws. They would hand-pick their son-in-laws, much to the disappointment and frustration of their daughters. They would hand-pick their son-in-laws. And women got tired of that shit. Women got tired of that shit. Women want to fuck who they want to fuck. End of story. You know, I hear all this talk about, oh, these guys are select fuck boys, and these guys are this, and these guys are that, and these women are this, and these women are that. Men want to fuck who they want to fuck. Women want to fuck who they want to fuck. End of story. What else does there need to be said? Really? What else does there need to be said? Men want to date who they want to date and fuck who they want to fuck. Women want to date who they want to date and fuck who they want to fuck. It ain't rocket science, fellas. It ain't rocket science. Okay, so somebody might say, well, Alan, since you make it sound so simplistic, why do we have all the problems that we do in today's dating scene? I mean, you making it seem like dating is so simplistic to understand. Why do we have so many problems in today's dating scene? Good question. And of course, I've answered a lot. I've given already answers in previous videos, but I'll tackle it again. See, first let me tell a story. I'm not going to tell in full detail, but if you own a copy of The Possibility of Sex, my book, The Possibility of Sex, at the beginning, I tell a story about when I was in part of a very borderline cult-like church in Los Angeles when I lived in Los Angeles for about 2.5 years. And here's what was interesting. When you were part of this church, you had to commit to practicing premarital celibacy and premarital abstinence. So pretty much all the men in the church had to practice premarital celibacy, or at least pretend like they were, otherwise they would get kicked out of the church. Same with the women. Like me, I never had sex with any woman that was in the church. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I had some sex with women who were outside the church. But as far as women who were within that church, I never had sex with any of them. I never attempted to have sex with any of them. But without getting too long a story, here's what I found interesting. And if you got the book, you'll know the story. Because none of the men in the church were pursuing women for short-term, non-monogamous sex, casual sex, or just premarital sex in general, guess what happened? Guess what happened? The women became far more aggressive. Women became far more aggressive. Yeah, all the men in the church were pretty much like, you can't get no dick until we get married. And you would think men would be the ones having problems controlling their sexual urges. And, you know, when they go on dates with the sisters in the church, which we all used to go on a regular basis, you would think it'd be the men who would have problems keeping their dick in their pants. Nope. It was just the opposite. It was the women. We had many instances in that church of women being sexually aggressive with the men. Why do you think that was? Well, at least one of the reasons why you think that was. I've heard people say in the manosphere, Alan, I think if all men sought out strictly monogamous relationships and all women sought out strictly monogamous relationships, that would eliminate these delineations between alpha and beta, or between select and non-select. Shout out to Ron Wills, that's his terminology. Select and non-select, desirable, undesirable, etc. That's bullshit. Because I saw it up close in that church. That's bullshit. One of the things that contributed to the women becoming so aggressive is because almost all the women were trying to hook up with the top 20, 25, 30, 35% of the most romantically desirable men. And they knew they were in competition with other women for those men, which made them more aggressive. Women become very aggressive when they feel like they're in competition with other women for a particular man's attention and companionship. Believe that shit. Believe that shit. Now, you would think if a woman can secure the romantic companionship of her, say, number one choice candidate, she would just go down to her number two choice candidate. And if she couldn't hook with him, she would go down to a number three choice candidate. If she couldn't hook with him, she would go down to a number four choice candidate. If she couldn't hook with him, she would go down to a number fifth choice candidate. No. That ain't how it work, you delusional motherfuckers. Women went for their number one candidate, And if they couldn't get him, they might have had a second number 2 candidate in place. Guess what happened if they couldn't get that number 2 candidate? They left the church. They just left. They left. Bingo. They left. They would rather leave the church. In simple terms, most of the women, if they couldn't hook up with their number 1 candidate for marriage, or at minimum their number 2 candidate for marriage, they would rather leave the church than potentially hook up with a guy that they weren't physically or sexually attracted to. Lesson learned, a strictly monogamous social environment don't solve shit. It don't solve shit. Motherfuckers still gonna want what they want. I mean, you can flip that around for men. If I put you on an island, say it's I got 20 men and 20 women on an island, and say only 5 of the 20 women on the island are considered physically attractive and sexy. And let's say the other 15 women are just either really old, really fat and obese, got poor personal hygiene, and they just generally are not that attractive physically and sexually unappealing. If you couldn't hook up with one of those 5 really desirable women, would you force yourself to settle for one of those 15 women that you find undesirable? Would you? Would you force yourself to settle for one of them? 90 to 99% chance, no, you would not. No, you would not. Women are the same way. What makes you think women are any different? What makes you think women are any different? That's why you had the second wave of feminism. Women ain't trying to hook up with motherfuckers who they ain't attracted to. With the possible exception if them guys got a lot of money. We all know that's why it's simply why you have gold diggers. A lot of women will hook up with a guy that they have an average or even less than average degree of attraction to if that motherfucker's balling financially. But as I point out in my books, 9 times out of 10, she gonna cheat on him though. I mean, key point is that woman I used to mess around with in Los Angeles. The blonde Caucasian woman who was engaged to a guy who was making just under $1 million a year. I didn't have shit. I didn't spend $5 on that bitch. Why was I able to fuck her anytime I wanted to? Why? For all you guys who say money is the number 1 key to pulling women. Why was I able to fuck that bitch without spending $5 on her? Why? And that's happened with many other women. I had one of the wealthiest female doctors in Los Angeles County taking care of me. I was her kept man. She was my sugar mama. For all you motherfuckers who want to lead with your wall and say money is the key. Nigga, I don't fuck dozens, if not hundreds of bitches without spending $10 on their ass. So y'all can shut the fuck up. I want to address something that somebody brought up in my comment section. Let me pull it up. Okay, I want to say this guy is a regular, or at least semi-regular commenter of mine in my comment section. He usually writes stuff that's not too, I don't know if he'll ever write anything that's disrespectful or unnecessarily antagonistic. But he wrote me this, and I'm going to give him a brief response. Baron LaCroix writes, less than 10% of men will be using indirect game in 15 to 25 years' time. That seems extremely optimistic, Alan. First, Mo 1 requires balls. Pause right there. I ain't no argument from me. I've said that from day one. Day one, as far back as like the late 1980s, I've said that about Mo 1. If there's one ingredient you got to have to make Mo 1 work for you, you got to have big balls and strong backbone. You got to have big balls and strong backbone. If you ain't got big balls or strong backbone, or at minimum you're not willing to develop big balls and strong backbone, Mo 1 ain't going to never benefit you. It ain't going to never benefit you. So Barron is right on the money when he says the number one requirement of Mo 1 is that you got a big ass balls. You do. Some people have said you got to have money to be Mo 1. Some people say you got to be amazingly good looking to be Mo 1. Both of those are invalid. That's bullshit. I know many guys who are not amazingly good looking who made Mo 1 work for them. I definitely know guys who are not wealthy. I know guys who are broke and unemployed, including myself, who have made Mo 1 work for them without the benefit of money. But the one thing you gotta have to be Mo 1 is you gotta have big balls and strong backbone. So I wanted to point that out. Now let me continue. Unless there are big, widespread changes in our society and in our upbringing and our brain chemistry, a man's ego and his profound fear of rejection will still be very deeply rooted among most men. Thus, the indirect approach, what's also known as indirect verbal game, will always be less painful despite its long-term drawbacks. Well, I won't totally disagree with that because I said just yesterday, that's one of the reasons why most PUAs and dating coaches who promote indirect verbal game usually make more money than guys who promote direct verbal game. Alpha male strategies, anyone? Because it's not as challenging to your ego to execute indirect verbal game. It helps diminish the pain of rejection. And in some respects, diminish your fear of rejection when you execute indirect game. But I do think society is going to cause men to evolve and more so favor direct verbal game. That's my strong belief, and I'm sticking to it. Now, let me continue. Second, if direct verbal game became the norm, there would be economic collapse. In capitalist societies, many men would simply be less inclined to impress women with material possessions. These men would stop buying luxury goods and become less ambitious and motivated career-wise. The powers that be would not let that happen. Now, Barron, you heard me in my opening clip mention the powers that be. I would say you're partially right, but mostly incorrect. Partially right, but mostly incorrect. I don't believe if all men began exhibiting Mo 1 behavior with women that it would directly lead to a major economic collapse. Why not? Because even if men are frustrated with their love lives and sex lives, they still want to protect themselves from adverse weather and danger, which means that they're always going to want shelter over their head. Many men are going to want to protect themselves from the criminal element, which means they're going to live in the best neighborhoods possible. That ain't got shit to do with their love life and sex life. So they're going to always be motivated to want to make money for that. A lot of men just like materialistic toys. Even if they already got a woman or they have no chance of getting a woman, they just like materialistic toys. So they're always going to want to spend money for that. So ain't going to be no widespread economic collapse simply because men are having a frustrating love life or sex life. And even more importantly, why would you be suggesting that if men use Mo 1 is going to lead to romantic or sexual frustration? That's insulting to me. That's insulting to me. Mo 1 has improved my love life and sex life, not hurt it. Now, if you're making the argument that once men realize they don't have to impress women with great wealth or expensive material possessions in order to get laid, that they're going to stop spending money, shit, that ain't future tense. That's happening already. That's happening right now. What are you talking about, Barron? With all due respect. That's already happening. I wrote a Negro Manosphere article about that. Look at the Me Too movement. The most glaring evidence of that assertion is the Me Too movement. If women were still impressed by men's wealth, power, and influence and status, material possessions, none of those men that have been targets of the Me Too movement would have been targets of the Me Too movement. You think Leslie Moonves would have been a target of the Me Too movement given his wealth? That motherfucker's one of the wealthiest people in the entertainment industry. Russell Simmons. Wait, my battery about to die. Yeah, Russell Simmons of Def Jam fame. Who up? Man, Charlie Rose? Come on, man. That tide change start changing around the 1970s, 1980s, man. Nowadays, women make their own money, man. That was one of the objectives of the second wave of feminism. Women make their own money. What does that mean in simple terms? If a woman's making 150 grand a year herself, why is she going to be impressed by a man making 150 grand? Why? Why? If a woman's making, like Oprah Winfrey is a billionaire, what man could impress her? And there's some other women who are, with all due respect to Oprah, I know some women that are more attractive than her that are billionaires. Like, one of those Kardashians I think is a billionaire close to it. And you see, she's dating a dude that makes far less money than her. Any woman who's making 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 big figures or higher, why are they going to be impressed with a man with wealth for? If a woman got her own level of power, influence, and status, what's she going to be impressed with a man who got that shit? Why? Come on, man. Wake the fuck up. Here's what I'm going to wrap up on. I'm talking about the second wave of feminism. I wrote an article on examiner.com. I don't know, I forget the year. 2013, 2014, might have been even 2015. Where I basically said that one of the most overlooked aspects of the second wave of feminism is most people looked at feminism as being representative of a gender war with men. And even before I came on to YouTube in April of 2017, I had a lot of guys talking about, like there's this guy I mentioned before, Alex, aka Don Calypso. He used to always tell me, Alan, you know, there's a lot of gender wars going on YouTube. There's among the black men and black women, there's a lot of gender wars. And since I've been on YouTube, I've been hearing people talk about gender war this, gender war that, gender war this, gender war that. Here's what I'm going to tell you guys. Is there some degree of a gender war philosophically between, say, men in the manosphere and women who are proponents of feminism? Yes. Yes, there are. But you know what's just as significant, if not in many cases more significant, is the intra-gender wars that are going on. Intra-gender wars going on. If you're not familiar with the word intra, that means within. Within. In other words, there's just as many, if not more, philosophical battles and wars going on amongst men themselves and amongst women themselves as much as there are against men versus women. Like most of the people I hear arguing on YouTube is not men arguing with women, it's men arguing with other men. It's men arguing with other men. And to a lesser extent, I hear women on YouTube from time to time arguing with other women. That's what my article was about. Without getting too lengthy, because I actually have this in my book, The Beta Male Revolution. But one of the things that propelled the second wave of feminism that I argued in my article I wrote in the Examiner is it was not the war between men and women, but a part of that, what propelled the second wave of feminism was a war between women and other women. Basically, in real simplistic terms, women who are monogamy-oriented good girls resented women who were more kinky, slutty, promiscuous, and likely to sleep with their husbands, fiancés, or boyfriends. They resented those women. I've talked about before, one of the reasons why the Victorian era became a big thing, one of the main motivations behind what was known as the Victorian era was the pretentious and monogamy-oriented good girls of society made it publicly known that they felt like slutty women didn't deserve to be married. And to this day, there are pretentious monogamy-oriented women who feel that way, as well as there's a lot of men who feel that way. I know a lot of men in the manosphere who have said, I don't believe sluts should ever be able to get married. Well, they do. They have and they do. And that's one of the reasons why you had the second wave of feminism. Because, again, without getting too lengthy, too academic, too overly intellectual, it was like this. The slutty women said to the pretentious, monogamy-oriented good girls of society, fuck you. Fuck you. Just because we like to fuck and we kinky and we promiscuous don't mean we should be outruled from getting married, and that's why a lot of sluts have gotten married. I know women in the porno industry who are married. There are women in the porno industry who are married. There are women who are publicly known as being polyamorous who are married. Marriage ain't just for monogamy-oriented good girls or monogamy-oriented gentlemen. And you see it on the male end. It's more prominent now on the male end. I can't help but hear different men taking jabs at, like a lot of men who have strictly monogamy-oriented sensibilities. What have they been doing in recent years? Criticizing the more promiscuous men. Again, guys like you know who calling guys select fuckboys. That's just straight up hating right there. To me, that's jealousy and hating. Calling somebody, another group of men, select fuckboys. What the fuck is that? That's bullshit. That's hate. In my world, that's hating. That's jealousy, envy, and hating. You hating on a man because he's more popular with women than you. You hating on a man because he's gotten higher quantity of pussy than you and or a higher quality of pussy than you. Period. End of story. I was talking about money, the importance of money or lack of importance of money. I hear guys in the manosphere talking about, well, you know, being good looking or being seductive or having a great mouthpiece, that don't mean shit. It should be about your career success and your financial success and how you're contributing to society. Yeah, wake up and come into the real world. That's what I say. Wake the fuck up and come into the real world. It's a lot of battles going on between men and men to the point where it's almost making the battles between men and women secondary, if not flat out irrelevant. Look at, if you go and read Elliot Rodgers' manifesto, he had just as much hatred for womanizing alpha males as he did for women. He had just as much hatred for womanizing alpha males as he did for women. Real talk. There's a lot of intra-gender wars going on, man. Particularly, I would say probably more so on the male side. On the male side, like I'll give you a couple, you could say, wars or philosophical battles I'm involved in. Number one is the whole direct versus indirect. As you know, I'm all about direct verbal game. So I tend to have a lot of philosophical beefs, not so much personal beefs, but philosophical beefs with guys who promote indirect verbal game. And particularly guys who promote lying to women and misleading and manipulating women to get them in bed. I'm totally against that shit. So that's one group of men I have a philosophical battle against. Then I just got a bunch of haters. Bunch of haters who don't like the fact that a guy like me has gotten the quantity and quality of pussy that I have. They resent that fact. They resent that fact. So they just hate on me. They hate on me that they didn't have the love life and sex life I did in my 20s, 30s, and even 40s and 50s. They resent that. Why are we having so many problems? Because we got a diversity of interests. That's the simple reason why we got a lot of problems in the dating scene. Y'all can say it's this, y'all can say it's that. But the bottom line is, man, is simply this, and this is where I wrap up. If society was to promote only strictly monogamous relationships, there's going to be a group of men and a group of women that would be unhappy and frustrated. If society was to open the door for everybody to be promiscuous and polyamorous, which is pretty much the case right now, you're going to have a group of men and women that's going to be disappointed and frustrated. There's no one type of society we could ever have where everybody, 100% of everybody, is going to be happy. People who favor strictly monogamous relationships are going to always be upset that society is allowing people to be promiscuous and polyamorous. And people who are favor promiscuous behavior and polyamorous behavior, they're going to always feel stifled by a society that says you should only be engaging in strictly monogamous relationships. Wake the fuck up. In my Patreon exclusive portion today, I'm going to talk about one of your biggest weapons, your voice. Join me in my Patreon exclusive portion.